10 years ago yesterday, Osama bin Laden was killed. It's been a decade now since the death of the world's most wanted terrorist, the man who founded al-Qaeda and who was the group's leader when it conducted the deadliest terrorist attack ever on U.S. soil, September 11th, 2001. To talk about this with me now, I'm joined on the set by France 24 terror expert Wassim Nasr. Hi, Wassim.
Hi, how are you?
10 years after the death of Osama bin Laden, what about al-Qaeda? Where is it now?
Well, actually, let us look first at this footage that was published yesterday by the media of al-Qaeda. It's a footage where we see bin Laden for the first time during a marriage, because he talks about the marriage of a person named Omar. And here we see him with very prominent, one of the most prominent leaders of al-Qaeda at the time, next to him. And actually we can date this footage between the 24th of February 2001 and before the 9/11 that you just talked about. Because they talk about the USS Cole attack, which occurred on October 2000. And then he talks about the first visit of Colin Powell, former Secretary of State under the Bush administration, to Iraq, which took place on the 24th of February 2001. So it is interesting to see that al-Qaeda is still publishing new footage, because Osama bin Laden is still the most important figure in jihad, either for al-Qaeda or the Islamic State.
And much has been made of the rivalry between al-Qaeda and a group that's taken much more prominence recently, the Islamic State group, or ISIS. Tell us about that.
Well, actually, they operate in very different ways. Today, at the head of al-Qaeda is Ayman Zawahiri. Even if some say that he is very diminished, he is ill, we should remember that we were saying the same about bin Laden at the time. And actually, when he was killed, the U.S. intelligence saw that he was getting involved in details of al-Qaeda at the time. So it might be the same case for Zawahiri today. They are on both different paths. We see that al-Qaeda is more and more involved in local politics, for example, in the areas where it is operating. We know that since his death, al-Qaeda evolved in numbers. We know, for example, that al-Qaeda is responsible for two important attacks in the West after the death of bin Laden. The first one is the attack of Charlie Hebdo on January 2015, and the second one happened in December 2019. It was in Pensacola, the United States, where a Saudi pilot who was learning at this military facility in the States turned his arm against his colleague and killed many. And we know that in those two attacks, they were prepared years prior to the act itself. So al-Qaeda is present as a guerrilla in the Sahel region, for example, in Somalia with the Shabab, and as a terror threat with al-Qaeda. And the Islamic State, on the other hand, is also evolving in a parallel way. The Islamic State is still in this epic war against the West, a war that doesn't see any end. As, on the other hand, the war on terror doesn't see any end, while al-Qaeda is getting more and more political and more involved in local politics. The most recent example is the situation in the Sahel region, where you see al-Qaeda negotiating with the Malian state, with the Burkinabe state, and even saying directly that France or the French soil won't be targeted, and that the war with France is only in the Sahel and Mali. This is first for al-Qaeda offshoot as a declaration, and we see that the path of al-Qaeda and of the Islamic State are splitting, but going still in a parallel way.
Wassim, thank you so much for coming in to talk to us. Wassim Nasr.